They said it wasn't possible. How could it be? This was supposed to be a rebuilding year, but our Cleveland baseball team, the Guardians, are in it, God willing, to win it. Rebuilding is the theme for today. This past week, we watched as hurricanes tore through Florida, the Carolinas, Cuba, and the South. And we know many in our own community and those that we know and love have been affected by the devastating storms. This week, the week after, begins the process of rebuilding and repair. And this also happens to be the national week for Jews. Maybe international, we should say. The International Jewish Week for building and rebuilding, with trips to the hardware store as we build our sukkot, our huts, in preparation for the holiday that begins tomorrow night. Just a few days after celebrating Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when we have bared our souls, we celebrate the holiday known as Man Simchatenu, the day of our great joy, Sukkot. And how do we mark this holiday, this great joy? By building a small hut outdoors, exposed to the elements, where we should eat, sleep, and study for 1 week out of the year. We're commanded to build shelter that's not hurricane-proof, a home with walls made of fabric or plastic, wood or lattice, and a see-through roof. But why do we build a sukkah? Just days after Yom Kippur, we start to build and we rebuild. Rabbi Naomi Levy writes that on Yom Kippur, God is our judge. On Sukkot, God is our shelter. On Yom Kippur, we sit cooped up for endless hours inside, but on Sukkot, it's about space and openness and breath. Yom Kippur, we ask the question, what have I done? On Sukkot, we ask the question, what can I do? On Yom Kippur, we deprive ourselves. On Sukkot, we share our bounty. On Yom Kippur, we sit in God's house. On Sukkot, we build a house for God to come and visit us. Rabbi Alan Liu highlights that the house that we build on Sukkot gives us very little to no shelter. It's not really a house at all. It's the bare outline of a house, 2 or 3 walls that barely close. We see the stars through a roof made of branches or leaves. It exposes the idea of a house as an illusion. The truth is, I built my house yesterday, my sukkah. No one wants me to build a house, trust me. This sukkah is a house that cannot fully give us security, shelter, or haven, much less from a hurricane or a storm. Our national rebuilding project reminds us of the 40 years that our ancestors wandered in the wilderness when God's cloud of glory protected us. The sukkah represents how extraordinary God cared for our homeless, refugee ancestors who fled Egypt and tyranny and oppression and enslavement and wandered the desert. God provided our ancestors food and water, protection from snakes and any animals. God made sure the soles of our feet didn't wear, our clothes never wore, and offered us shade by day in the middle of the desert sun, keeping us safe from the harshest of elements. The holiday of Sukkot is an opportunity for us to express gratitude. Gratitude for all that we have in our lives, for the harvest, and a reminder that our ancestors lived in Sukkot when they wandered the wilderness. Perhaps when we sit in our humble sukkah, we appreciate how far we have come in our lives and reminds ourselves to be humble. Living in our sturdy homes, we feel like we are protected from the elements. We have a tendency to become too secure in our lives. When we dwell in the sukkah, we're reminded that we cannot simply trust our well-made homes to protect us. We've seen that in these past weeks. But rather that we have to do our best given what we have. And when we sit in a cold or wet Cleveland sukkah, it happens every year, when we're exposed to the elements, we're reminded of those less fortunate who experience these living conditions every single day, and that we should be motivated on Sukkot to reach out to them and help them, making sure they have safe, secure, and comfortable shelter. Rabbi Sharon Brous teaches that we spend all year building structures, working on our homes, building additions, and then we go outside into this very simple structure that we've tried to make look lovely, but it's not at all like a real house. And we say, here's what matters: sitting at a table with people that we love, sharing a meal, knowing at the end of the day that what persists is friendship. What sustains us is not the additions that we make to our homes, but the relationships that we build. When we strip away all of our luxuries, we should still be content with what we have, because we are all that we need. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz teaches that dwelling in a sukkah epitomizes a life of uncertainty. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Just look at our guardians, and hopefully they'll win today and make it to the next round. When the people of Israel finally entered the land of Israel, their lives changed dramatically. After wandering for 40 years, living in tents or perhaps Sukkot, they made homes. They lived in security. Such a life affords people the possibility to plan for the future, to put down roots, and so much more. So why do we celebrate Sukkot? At the time of the harvest festival, when we store away the fruit that we have for the winter into the spring, we are able to look forward, not backward. But precisely at this moment, we are obligated to leave our homes and to live in our sukkah, our shelter, returning to a life of impermanence. Is living permanently bad? Can it lead us to be complacent, overconfident, lack a feeling of responsibility for others? It's easy to sit behind our four walls and not look out to others. The rabbis say that perhaps living in our homes and closing our doors off to others can desensitize us to the needs of others. Sukkot reminds us that there are those outside of our circle that are in need of our help. When we gather on this holiday to give thanks, to rejoice in all that we have, we are reminded that we have a common destiny and that we are all the same and that we have to care for others. We have to open our doors, and that's perhaps why we make a sukkah that doesn't have a door at all. When we squeeze together in our humble, wobbly, and warped huts, we are remembered what truly matters. Rabbi Wolpe teaches one reason why we go from the high holidays to Sukkot is that on Rosh Hashanah, the world is given to us. The world is created. We now have to build something. We have to create something out of our world, and Sukkah is the first gesture. With the first nail that we drive in, and trust me, I drove a lot of nails yesterday, we say every time, having been redeemed, being given a second chance from Yom Kippur, it's now my time to redeem and help others. It's my opportunity and my responsibility to make our world better. So when we sit in our sukkah in this coming week, and hopefully it'll get a little warmer and a little sunnier, may we strive to do our part to make our world better, to rebuild, to provide shelter, to share our bounty with others, to feel protected by God's glory, and open our doors, even if we don't have one, to all those in need. Shabbat Shalom.